Welcome to Six in the Six, episode 15. I can't believe I've actually found 15 people who wanted to talk to me, but that's good. Today we have the amazing Bri Stahrr from the Syracuse, New York area. Bri, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Happy to be here.
I think we have Susan to thank for introducing us, and wow, I'm like really grateful for her because the limited time I've spoke to you and came to one of your clinics, we're like kindred spirits.
Yeah, no, I got that vibe too after the practice the other day. I'm like, dang, this is gonna be a cool relationship, and I'm excited to see where we can go with it.
Yeah, I like that. Actually, one of the questions, well, it's going to be more of a comment. We'll kind of we'll test that water a little bit and see how deep that similarity goes. So a little bit about your start. In my research, I found out you were maybe thinking of soccer to begin with. And I
Yes.
wore my Orlando Pride shirt
Oh, there you go.
just in
Yes.
honor of your soccer roots today.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the start of your journey to lacrosse goaliehood.
Geez. So my parents put me and then I have a twin sister into a bunch of different sports when we were growing up. We played basketball, we played flag football, we were cheerleaders at one point. They put us in field hockey at one point, and soccer was very clear that it stuck. And then lacrosse didn't come into play until we were about sixth grade, I think. And they just put us in that because they were like, okay, you need something other than just soccer. Because at that point we were playing a ton of soccer and not anything else other than soccer. So they signed us up for ULA. We did it. I was like, this is okay. I wasn't really good at first. And it was about a year later, we were playing at a tournament. Up until then, I'd been a field player. And I had a friend say, hey, Bri, we think you'd be really good at goalie. I'm not sure if she was saying that just because she wanted somebody else in goal other than herself, or if she
Probably.
actually truly believed I would be good. I don't know what the answer is, but I went in goal for that tournament. And from there, I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest position sport I've ever played in anywhere. And from there, it stuck. And I'm really happy she made me go in that day, because if she didn't, I probably would have been a field player all throughout.
So that's, I think that's the first time. Usually I get the answers like someone had a brother that would like to shoot on them, or they didn't want to do the conditioning on the team, or aka be a
Yeah.
midfielder. I think this is the first time I've heard that somebody stroked your ego to
Yes.
get you to pop in.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely no older siblings forced me. No, like nobody forced me other than this friend being like, hey, we think you'd be good at it. And then that's how I started.
So what part of the position really enthralled you, really made that light bulb go on and say, this is what I want to do?
The athletic side of it. But I don't think I could have identified the athletic side of it when I was 12 years old. Now I look back and I really liked making the saves that you didn't think you could make, and then making the saves in the way that you weren't supposed to ideally make them, right? So one thing I did from the very start on low shots, I always fell to the ground and fell to my knees, and my coaches hated it. They're like, you got to step, whatever, whatever. And I never did that from the start. And all the way until my very last day at SU, I very rarely ever stepped to a low shot without bringing my body down somehow. So I liked finding ways to save the ball that were not the conventional ideal. This is how you're technically supposed to do it, save the ball. So making the big saves, the adrenaline off of that, oh my God, I loved it.
Well, was it the kind of internal, yes, I made that save, that kind of got you excited about that? Or was it the look of disappointment in the shooter's eyes when they thought they had that?
It might have been both, because I liked always being able to prove people wrong and show, this sounds so cocky, show that I was better than them, show that they couldn't deceive me and that I could still save the ball no matter how you shot it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's cocky as much as it just kind of had you navigating through your power poses as you were standing
Yeah.
tall and projecting confidence outward to your teammates.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
frame it like that.
Right. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned the athletic side because kind of like I said, why some people say they went in is they didn't want to be a midfielder and do all that
Mhm.
running. And I think there's kind of a stigma around the goalie position, and this may be across all sports, that, oh, I don't have to do as much conditioning, or maybe I don't have to be quite as good in shape, which I think is constantly perpetuated by the fact that goalies are always the last in the pregame jog line.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I love the fact that you mentioned that athletic side because I think as the game's evolving, just the ability to move quickly and we only may have to go 8 to 12 meters until they
Mhm.
let us score. Right. So I think I love that mindset. The other thing I like, which is why we've connected well, that wanting to save the ball no matter what it takes. And one of the things I've heard recently from two of the goalies I've worked with is their coaches told them either one, they had to correct that bad habit of split
Yeah.
saving, getting low, to which I'm thinking, bad habit. Hold on, we trained all summer on that, and you were a field hockey goalie, so it came naturally. So why not build on your
Right.
strengths?
Yeah.
The
Yep.
other one was, I just heard this the other day. The comment was made, well, that's not the way we save the ball. That's boys lacrosse. What?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, as long as you can save it, a save's a save in the stat book, no matter how it looks. Obviously, there is some benefit to having the conventional step to the ball, move your hands, whatever, whatever. But at the end of the day, you really need to be able to save that ball. So if it looks ugly, if it doesn't look like what you see on YouTube or wherever your coach finds what a goalie is supposed to look like, a save's a save, right? And I honestly think the more athletic you can be, the more you can move your body, the more you can be flexible and athletic about it, the more you can save.
Well, and I think, at the end of the day, our job is to end the possession of the other team. So if that's accomplished, whether it's being the eighth defender and intercepting the ball, whether it's just putting up a brick wall really quick, that's basically you. I'm cheering like a maniac on the sideline for you. One
Yes.
thing I always tell my goalies is I may be cheering like a maniac. You may be stoked because you saw the look of disappointment in their eyes, back to earlier. But we're going to have a conversation, right? What'd you think? How was your balance? Would you have done something different? If you do that again, or when you do it again, what will be different about that, right? To
Right.
make it more effective. So I just, and this kind of, I go through tangents on these calls because my brain goes nuts.
Yeah.
But it's like meeting you inspired me to start my research on a new book. And it's
Yeah. Okay.
kind of like on this same topic of like, how do we expect to evolve the position or evolve
Right.
us as better athlete goalies if we're stuck in old paradigms?
Yes. I don't know much about ice hockey goalie, but I know enough to know that the ice hockey goalie position has changed drastically in the last 100 years. So I always question, why with lacrosse are we still staying with how goalies were playing in the 80s, right? Shots were different back then, sticks were different back then, and the goalie has to evolve with that. The goalie can't stay how we looked back when a woman's stick was a tennis racket, right? So why are we keeping goalies the same? I think the more we can encourage them to change, the better, because the shots, especially in women's lacrosse, they're getting closer, they're getting faster, they're getting harder. So you have to change with that.
That was one of the points I made in my presentation at the IWLCA this past year. Was for you look at for every Charlotte North, there's 2,200 young girls practicing those shots. Every week, a new stick technology comes out that a little more whip, a little more control, a little more accuracy. So to your point, things are evolving from a technology standpoint and just from a physicality standpoint so fast that it totally,
Yes.
I mean, that being said, I tell the girls I work with, I'm like, you know, we're going to practice split saves. We're going to practice dropping to a knee. We're going to practice that traditional tripod or whatever you want to tell it. Because when the time comes to make a decision, I don't want you to have to think, just react. And I want you to have been in that situation where you can be successful in that reaction without overthinking.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I think, like I was saying, as long as you can make the save, a save's a save. And I like your point about Charlotte North there too, and how much social media has contributed to changing the game, because now young kids are seeing Charlotte North on TikTok doing things or on Instagram doing things, and they are replicating that, and they're just going to keep replicating that until they get better and better and better and better.
Well, and to that point, it was only a couple of years ago, I'd be at youth practices and hear coaches instructing girls to stop those sidearm shots.
Oh, yes.
Thing, right? And I don't hear that anymore. So it's kind of like, again, with the social media and the seeing of the success, it's all of a sudden, you know, you see those B2Bs and those sidearms and those submarines and those Twizzlers and those whatever else you have now.
Yep. And they're so much better now too. People were shooting like that a little bit when I was in high school, but they weren't as good. Generally, some of them were really good, some of them weren't very good. But now the girls that I coach, they can do it, and they can do it well. They can do it and score almost every single time. So it's clear that all this like media and role models that they have that we didn't necessarily have before are changing the game pretty drastically.
And for us goalies, I like how I say us goalies. It's already a shooter's game, so way to make our life harder, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we need to push ourselves. So speaking of like quality shooters and things, wow, you were at SU right during the time of some just legends of the game.
Yes.
Sheila Trainer was there.
Yep.
Asa Goldstock you played with. What was and Gary Gate, you know, legendary coach, legendary figure in the lacrosse world. What was it like for you your freshman sophomore year to be out in that environment and look around and see these people? Was it known at that point that the impact they were going to have on the game?
I don't think I realized it at the time, especially Kayla's impact. I think I kind of understood it, but at that time, she was still just my teammate, and we were still just looking to win the next game. So I think since that was my focus at the time, I didn't necessarily realize the prolonged impact of Kayla with the game. Like the fact that she's 28, 29 and a head coach at SU and just went to the Final Four is insane. Kayla, best player I've ever played with, best leader I've ever played with, best role model I've ever played with. Like everything good you hear about Kayla is true. And the fact that she got the SU job at 26, 27 years old, yes, that is the right position for her. Obviously, there were other people interviewed and stuff too, and I'm sure those candidates were quality, but from that list, she was the one that was top, that stood out. She's very much like Gary, where Gary is always one step ahead of everything. He is unbelievably smart, everywhere smart, like lacrosse smart, book smart, any type of smart you can think of, that's Gary. And Kayla has found ways to replicate that using her own philosophies and her own personality and her own beliefs with the game and with coaching and how you approach coaching. So yeah, I'm so grateful that I played with Kayla. I'm so grateful that I played for Gary, for Reggie, for Caitlin DeFelice, for at one point Maddie Palin was there. He was the goalie coach. Jason Gebhardt was the goalie coach at one point. I look back and it's like, dang, like I was really lucky with the people that I was able to play with and play for.
I feel the other good point of Kayla getting that position, besides obviously being able to do it, is she's young enough to still be in the minds of these girls coming up through the youth and club teams, that it's, in my opinion, really opened up a different avenue of post-playing opportunity that, you know, someone's sitting there saying, hey, I can do that. I just need to keep working and keep learning. And that's huge.
Yeah. And then I also just think too, it's great to have a female in that position. High school, all my coaches were male. College, most of my coaches were male. And to now see that there's a lot of females taking over head coaching positions and assistant coaching positions in college and high school is just awesome. Right now, the staff that I work with at CNS, it's all female. When I played, it was all male, right? So that switch is awesome. It shows that women can be in these leadership positions, especially because, I mean, obviously the games are similar. The men and the women's game are similar, but you know, the women's game, you want a women's coach coaching the women's game. You want a men's coach coaching the men's game. So it's so great to see that change in such a short time from high school to college, and who is in these positions now.
I'm grateful every single day that I still have space in coaching the female game, the women's game.
Yeah.
It's because I love that movement, and when I've had opportunities to be a head coach, I've always surrounded myself with, you know, female coaches to kind of inspire, and everything you just said. So a lot of times I'm like, wow, I'm inspiring people to push me right out of a job. So I'm still grateful I'm working where I like to be working.
Yeah.
So 12-year-old you started to like the goalie position, and maybe you didn't realize it at the time as well, but being a multi-sport athlete up to that point, looking back, how do you think your experience in a variety of different sports helped you become the goalie you became?
That's a good question. With soccer, there's a lot of sliding and falling, and I think that helped with my falling for low shots, being athletic for any shot really, but especially the low shots. And I think also just overall endurance, and the fact that I could last an entire lacrosse game, get interceptions, go out for ground balls, push the clear as much as I could. Back then, not every goalie could do that. Now a lot of goalies can do that, but back then, you know, a lot of goalies were put in because they weren't the fastest on the team, or they weren't the most athletic, or they were big enough to cover up the whole goal. Back then, it was just really me. The Liverpool goalie was similar to me, and then I think the West Jenny goalie was similar to me, and it was us three. And other than that, nobody else was really that athletic. Nobody else was going to get ground balls. Nobody else was going to get for interceptions. No one did that. Sometimes the goalies still don't do that, which it is what it is. But I just think feeling confident in spaces outside of the crease, right? Feeling confident even when somebody came to defend me. Because in soccer, that always happened. People were always coming to defend you. I didn't have a crease to protect me in soccer. I did in lacrosse, but I was able to go out of the crease because I knew I could beat them, because I did it in soccer all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because I'm a huge advocate of coaching that eighth defender, like what you talked about, jumping out into passing lanes, helping the defense defend, ground balls, etc. But there's still, in my opinion, space for that stay-at-home goalie, especially if they're younger and working on that confidence. It's just your thoughts on, you know, on the stay-at-home versus that eighth defender.
Yeah, I got to that part in your book when you said that no matter how the goalie plays, it's still good and you should still value it. Yeah, like you said, there's space for everyone. I think if you're an eighth defender, you make yourself more of a threat, and it's harder for other teams to, not harder, it makes it more complicated for other teams to develop game plans against you when they know that, oh, this goalie, she's probably going to push the clear to the restraining line, or she's probably going to try and intercept your pass when you're back at X. I think every little thing that you can do that makes you an eighth defender or makes you more of a threat as a goalie is valuable, especially in 1-2 goal games. Right. So you can stay in the crease. That's okay. You could just be a saver and then pass it out, whatever. But in 1-goal games, that's when it comes down to that one ground ball that you got, or that one interception that you got, or that one thing that someone did somewhere that made a play for your team to get that 1-goal edge that made you win. So while, yes, it is important for a goalie to feel safe and valued no matter how they play, I do think it is so important for you to find ways to challenge the other team, no matter how that looks for you, and be a threat, no matter how that looks for you. And oftentimes that leads into being an eighth defender, if you
Yeah,
can do it, if you have the confidence for that.
100% agree. I think too, especially if you can throw a surprise in there every once in a while, you could completely derail an offensive strategy.
Yep.
And then, that gives you a little bit of an upper hand in a game that's, against us a little bit, because all the rules are for shooters, and, defense hardly gets anything, a charge every once in a while, I guess. So here's something crazy. A couple of the goalies I've worked with, speaking of outside of the box and kind of messing with the other team's head, switching hands while moving into. So I've had a couple goalies who, as they're moving side to side in the crease to with either a cut or whatever, as that motion's going, swapping hands, the shooter looks up and, oh, you're stick side now all of a sudden. What do you think of that?
Okay, so I never did that. I actually would do that for scout team at SU. If we were playing against a left-handed goalie, I would play left-handed. And I found actually that if I had a bad habit with it in my right hand, if I put it in my left hand, I didn't have that habit. So I find that if you have a bad habit, maybe stick it in your left hand or your right hand, and you can work getting that habit to go away. But like everything that's developing in the lacrosse goalie game, I think that is maybe the next thing that's coming, teaching goalies to use both hands and to be able to save with both hands. I think its entrance is very slow, and I think its development over time will be very slow, but in the next 15 years, maybe that will be a lot more common than it is now. Obviously, there will be a lot that goes into it, because to pass and catch left-handed or offhand is a lot different than saving offhand. You really, really got to develop that other hand, that other wrist, that other forearm to be able to control the ball once you save it. So I think there's a space for that. It'll be a while, in my opinion, but I think that is definitely the next move that lacrosse goalies are making.
So one of my goalies that we've been exploring this, she asked the question of, when do you think they'll make a double-headed stick? So it'll be like a kayak paddle. So
yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Who knows? So
yeah.
on that other thing of both hands, the other thing I've been playing around with a little bit, because we're the only sport where, at least traditionally, it's been top hand, top hand,
Yes.
top hand.
Yep.
And then you're off stick hip, right? Do you go over? Do you go under? Pick one, commit to it, whatever. But we already have a hand down there. Why wouldn't you just punch the ball?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Well, you also see that ice hockey goalies, they have, like, the way that they're set up, they can do that. I think punching the ball is good, especially too, you can also, there's a lot of times the way you move the stick, you save it with your shaft, which is very uncommon and very against you because the shaft is so small. But as long as you can figure out a way to save it, then yes, save it if you want to punch it. Figure out a way to control that rebound, because you're probably not going to be able to control the rebound, but figure out a way to save it. Get there. At the end of the day, you saved it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is a case where, I think back to an earlier discussion, I think there's a few fundamentals that should be adhered to in saving. Things like, we need to get our hands off our body. We can't have T-Rex arms. I should try to get my lead foot over the flight path of the ball, things like that. So in this case, if I'm getting my body into the flight path of the ball, even if I miss it with that shaft, I'm probably taking it off my food baby.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. As long as you can stick to fundamentals and still figure out a way to continually be successful with what you're doing, I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with experimenting with any type of way to make a save, as long as you can be successful with it. If you're trying something and you're continually failing, maybe that's not the right thing to try, and you should look into different ways to save the ball. But if you're experimenting, I don't think that's bad. We're still early in the lacrosse game, if you think about it, in terms of its development, and we don't know where goalie will go from here. So whatever you can add to it, whatever can make you more of a threat, whatever can make you more valuable to your team, I think is good.
Love it. I just came to the realization that although I'm still researching it, when I actually get this new book in some semi-decent state, I'm sending you a pre-copy of it.
Yeah.
Because we are definitely kindred spirits, and maybe if I'm lucky, you'll write the foreword.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Something like that, right? So let's switch to, well, kind of the past and the current for you. CNS, Cicero North Syracuse. You mentioned when you played there, all male coaches. You're now part of an all female coaching staff. Besides that difference, what was it like coming back to your alma mater? And is that how you say that word? Alma mater?
Yeah.
What was it like going back there and playing and winning a sectional title 2 years ago, I believe?
Yeah. Okay. So, I never really, coaching wise, never really left CNS. So I was 15 when I started coaching goalies. And then I continued with it during high school. And then during college, I would be able to come home or go to Sports Center 41 on some nights and coach the goalies. And over the summer, I'd coach the goalies. So I never really left. And then the actual position was open my first year teaching. And then they just were like, hey, do you want this? And I was like, yeah, I've been doing it forever, really. So the goalies that I coach at CNS right now, I've known them forever. The senior goalie, I've known her for 9 years. The sophomore goalie, Jilly, I've known Jilly literally since she was in 3rd grade. So it wasn't, I never really left CNS, right? Because I was always coaching the goalies all throughout. So then when I started officially Board of Education approved, started coaching, the only difference was that now you're getting paid for it versus before I wasn't really, it was more just volunteer. But that first year that I coached, it was COVID. It was crazy. We were wearing masks. Everything was insane. The season didn't start until the end of April or something. And the last time the team had played, the 2019 season, my younger sister was on the team, and I think they had only won one game that year. So I was coming in and I'm like, we'll see what happens. And then we ended up winning sectionals, and it was awesome because, when there's a team that the last time that they played, they were 1-15 or whatever, right? You really can only go up. So anytime they won a game, it was a celebration. Oh my God, guys, we won 2 games. You've already doubled your record, your win record from last year, 3 games, 4 games, whatever. And I did not expect that team to win sectionals that year until we got to the sectional final game. And I was like, oh my God, I think we actually might win this. And honestly, I think the assistant and head coach could say the same thing. We never expected to win that year. Our only goal was to change the culture and have them feel more confident who they are as players, change the leadership around, and change everything into more positive than what it was before. And then they ended up winning. The leadership, the captains on that team that year, was insane. They were great. They're the best leaders I've ever coached with, whatever. And they were seniors, and we still see them sometimes. One of them was actually at the clinic the other day. Molly was one of the shooters.
Okay.
She was a senior that year. Say it again.
I said, okay, I remember Molly.
Yes, yeah, she plays at Mount St. Mary's now. She's a midfielder, I think. So I was shocked that we won that year, but I think the fact that I had such a positive experience, it kept me in coaching. Because I didn't know, obviously I had done a ton of volunteer coaching in high school and college. I didn't know whether I actually wanted to continue with it. And then I did that, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. I love watching kids grow up. I love watching kids reach their goals. It's awesome. And then I've come back every year since then. So it's awesome. I really, really enjoy it.
Well, they are lucky to have you. This I know is a fact.
Yeah.
So the culture mindset kind of thing you were trying to instill there, I think you mentioned the positivity kind of thing. Did you get any lessons of being one of many goalies in SU and kind of the mindset you had to cultivate during that time? Did you find things you carried from those lessons into you being able to help the team with the new culture?
Yeah. I mean, everybody I played with at SU was good. All the goalies I played with at SU were good. And I think the biggest takeaway from my time at SU is that there are many different ways to be a leader, and leaders look different. So I think you often think the person who takes the draw and plays every minute of the game is a leader, but that's not necessarily true, right? You can have somebody on the bench who's a leader. And this past year for CNS, we had a senior who was on the bench, and she was an amazing leader. So I think being able to recognize leadership no matter where it is and value that leadership no matter where it is something I took away from SU, and is something I try to use in my coaching all the time, right? Like, it's easy to be like, oh, okay, the starting goalie, she's a leader. Generally she is, but how about the goalie on the bench? What does her leadership look like? She's probably a good leader too, because goalies generally are naturally leaders. Sometimes they're not. So just to see what different qualities people have and see how those can help the team with the team's goals, I think is the most important thing as a coach, and to look at everybody and their leadership abilities and their qualities, and not just the starters or the people who play the most often, to look towards the bench too. Because really, if you can't control your bench, if you can't control your locker room, you're not going to have a really good team culture. You need to be able to control the bench in the locker room, and you should find a leader who can do that for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that's important there is you look for the person that is grateful to be where they're at and have the opportunity that they have from a team perspective, or whatever it is in their head, and that makes them really embrace their role, which to me is like, no matter where you are, if you're having fun and you're kicking butt at embracing your role, you're displaying some good leadership skills right there.
Yes.
Instead of being like, oh, I deserve this, or I wish I had that, or of course we all want to start and play, but sometimes you have to embrace reality and say, hey, I'll just keep busting my tail and it'll come.
Yeah. I agree with that. It's, especially in high school, it's hard because it takes a lot of maturity to embrace your role. And I mean, in high school, you're young, right? 16, 17, 18 years old, you're young. So if you are somebody who's on the bench, it's really easy to be like, this sucks, or I want to quit, or whatever. But to be the person who turns that around, and you're controlling your situation by, okay, you're not playing, but you can still be a good leader and rock the bench every single time we score or make a good play. Like, that's still so important for the team. And so the girl that did that for our team this year, her name is Olivia. Oh my God, she did such a good job. I think she maybe played 15 minutes this whole season. She was a defender, but she was outstanding on the bench. And it takes so much composure and maturity to do that. And it's not something everybody can do, because most people, by the time they're a senior, if they're a bench warmer, whether it's college or high school, they end up quitting because it is hard. So, credits to anybody who can do that and be a leader, and a good leader, and not get the time on the field, because it's really hard to do that.
Yeah, boom, right. Drop the mic on that one. 100% agree. And those are the people that are going to go on and be successful CEOs and whatever else, because they've stood and faced adversity and faced not maybe getting what they've wanted, and refused to make it about them, and just gave out to everyone else. So I think that's huge. So okay, hold on, time check. Okay, we're doing good. So the question asked from our last guest, who is a defender for Roberts Wesleyan, she wanted to know the one thing, or it could be multiple things, you would want to make into habits, or maybe phrase it, things that you aren't currently doing that will get you to your next level. And probably think more of maybe a mindset perspective than I need to do the dishes 3 times a day perspective.
Two things really helped me. that I try to encourage my players to do. One is visualization. I did that constantly in high school, not as much in college, but in high school, I did it all the time. I would do it in the morning when I woke up. I would do it when I was bored in class. I'd do it before I fell asleep to go to bed at night. And just visualizing yourself playing well, saving the shot, winning the draw, getting the ground ball, that changed my game, like in ways I didn't even think would happen. And there are studies that show if you do visualization, like it will benefit you a lot. So visualization is huge. And I think teams, unless that comes naturally to you, I think teams really need some type of mindset sports psychologist person that could walk them through that to build those skills, because it's definitely not an easy skill, especially for the people who probably have focus issues or ADHD. That's going to be really hard. But visualization is one. Goal setting, another thing, but like physical goal setting. You can say, oh, I want to play D1. Okay, well, how are you going to get there? Right? What can you do right now to make you better today, tomorrow, next week, that will give you one step closer to getting to that Division I goal? Again, goal setting, that's a skill. A lot of my students, they will be like, oh, I want to play professional basketball. Oh, I want to be a doctor. Okay, great. What are you going to do to develop those skills to actually get you there? Visualization, goal setting. And the last one, I think, is just, I guess I would call it like affirmations, right? Like trusting yourself, knowing that your skills are good enough, knowing that you're athletic enough to go out there and be the best player that you can be for your team, the best player to win that game that day. And in high school, I was pretty good with feeling confident in myself. College, absolutely not. I had like two out of 5 stars of confidence in college. Never trusted myself, never trusted my athletic abilities. But I think if you can find ways to trust yourself and maintain that trust when you're successful, when you fail, when you're facing adversity, I think is huge. And I think that's a game changer. And I think many, many people do not have trust in themselves, wherever it is. It could be in sports, it could be in like the real world, doctor, whatever job you're doing. I think a lot of people lack that, which I think is very sad, because you do deserve to feel confident in what you're doing and approach what you're doing with confidence, because chances are you've put the work in to be there, to deserve to be there. So those are the things. They're I don't want to say they're like hippie things, but I feel like they're hippie-ish woo-woo things. But those are things that have definitely helped me as a lacrosse player, as just an overall athlete with what I do now, and then as a teacher too, and coach.
Yeah, I don't call those hippie at all. Those are like the heavy hitters of when I'm doing mindset stuff with people.
Yeah.
Those are some of the heavy hitters. The one thing I would add to that, that's really tightly tied into it, is, you know, are you managing your self-talk so that you're communicating with yourself with compassion, that you're building
Yes.
up that confidence and courage, and building up your self-image, right?
Yes.
Or are you playing a third opponent
Right.
yourself
Yeah.
all the time? So I think I would add that one as well.
Yeah, I think that's valuable too. Self-compassion, having grace for yourself when you fail, whether it's a big failure or a little failure.
So speaking of failures, back in your visualizations, you mentioned, you know, let's see me at my best and making those tough saves and all of that. Did you ever kind of do the negative side of that, saying, okay, we're off, we're playing a team that we should win, they charge down the field and score a goal in the first 15 seconds? Did you ever visualize like the negative side of things?
I did, but not as much. It was generally just the positive, made the save, got the ground ball, did a good clear. Generally, the negative visualization would happen after a game that we lost or I didn't think I played well. And I would visualize what went wrong and then correct that in my visualization, right? So if I did something wrong, how would I have then fixed it? So definitely not as much, but I did find ways to put it in there.
But I love that answer, because it goes back and ties the whole thing together. Just your approach, my approach to the position, whereas you're purposefully evaluating what happened and then adding that back into routines to make yourself better. It's funny because I think it was Mike Tyson that said he visualized for this fight might have been Evander Holyfield, I can't remember. And he visualized the bell going off and sparring this, and the bell rang and he got punched right in the face.
Yes.
His comment was, I never visualized getting punched in the face, so I didn't know how to react.
Yeah. You have to prepare for the worst. It stinks to say that, but sometimes you do mess up. Sometimes you do have something that doesn't go your way, and you have to figure out a way around that, because if you shut down on yourself, you're just going to keep messing up and keep failing.
Well, and life constantly is throwing obstacles our way. So that's a huge skill. Well, really the last thing. So another flame you ignited in me was to finally get off my backside and get this coaching kind of group together. With some monthly meetings, a gathering of the goalie minds to share information and things like that. I love that you've started that off with me, and I'm really hoping we can grow this out. What are your kind of your thoughts on where we could take that?
I think we could take it so far, right? So as a teacher, the biggest thing that I can do for my students is have them talk, share ideas, share thoughts, share questions, share experiences. So now the fact that we can bring that to lacrosse and have different goalie coaches and goalies share ideas, share thoughts, share experiences, share questions, I think is amazing. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I've never really found or never really understood how to start it. So when you reached out saying, let's do this, I'm like, yes, on board. Especially as a coach, I'm always trying to learn more in terms of how can I be a better coach? How can I help this player succeed this way? And I think the opportunity to share thoughts is such a valuable opportunity. And I'm really excited to see where it will go and how we will be able to grow the lacrosse goalie position, because it has so much space to grow is the thing. And I know there's a lot of people like you and me out there, but we haven't all had the opportunity to meet and talk yet. So I think so many great, awesome things will come out of us meeting and talking. It'll be great. I'm pumped for this weekend. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, I am too. And you touched on one of my favorite sayings of all time, that our athletes can't follow a stop sign.
Yes.
We expect them to grow, and yet we're not growing ourselves. Eventually they're going to outpace us, and that's not how we want things. We have to be happy they're doing well. But yeah, the thing you mentioned, coaches and goalies, and for some reason this nugget just loosened up in my head, saying, well, we should bring a couple goalies to these things as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be very beneficial. Yep.
All right, let's do it. I'm going to look for some for this weekend. It might be too late.
I might be able to find one. I'm not sure, but I might be able to get one.
Because I love that perspective, and that's just a win-win. Okay, so for our next guest, which I have no idea who that's going to be yet, what question would you ask them?
Okay, so you don't know who it's going to be yet.
No idea.
So this question might work for coach, player, whatever. What is a success you had, and what do you attribute to that success, and how do you use that for to inform your future coaching or playing? And then what's a failure you've had? What do you attribute to that failure? How do you use what you learned from that to inform your future playing, coaching, career, whatever?
Love those. That's going to make someone scratch their head.
Oh, yeah. You got to think about it.
But I'm thinking about, okay, what would I answer that with? All right, well, this has been awesome. I know I didn't prep you at all. I don't prep anybody. So what were you possibly expecting I would ask that I didn't?
Oh, geez. That's a really good question. Possibly expecting that you would ask that you didn't. I figured you would ask about anything about Syracuse. I actually thought you would ask more about Gary and playing under Gary, because a lot of people, when they realize that I played at Syracuse, they're always like, oh my God, how was it like to play with Gary? maybe I'd figured you'd ask more about high school lacrosse and where high school lacrosse is going, and like I guess intersection between like club lacrosse and high school lacrosse and how that's developed. And then honestly, I thought you would ask me more about my experience at SU too, and playing or lack thereof, because I wasn't on the field very much throughout my entire SU career. But yeah.
Role player.
Yeah, role player.
So I think the answers to the Gary question and to the intersection of high school and club will come out in our coaches collective meetings, because
Yes.
I think how Gary will come out in how you
Oh,
just
probably.
how you
Yeah.
are.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about the different levels and things like
Mhm.
that. So awesome. Great. Thank you very
Mhm.
much for your time this
Yeah.
morning. I know you're busy
Yeah.
in the middle of your real job.
Yeah.
Unlike some of us who this is the real job.
The insurance benefits job.
True. Although just as meaningful as coaching, being a teacher and all.
Exactly.
I
So,
appreciate your time. It's been amazing getting to know you. I look forward to our journey together in furthering the education of all things goalie.
yes. Yep, I do
And
too.
until next time,
Yes. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it a lot.
thank you. See you later.